In this interview, Camille Johnson, family liaison at HF Capital, the Haslam Family Office, discusses how she gets the youngest members of the family invested in its history long before they're old enough for ownership decisions, why educating the second generation can matter just as much as educating the next one, and what she's found to be both the hardest and most rewarding parts of her job. For the really young family members who maybe are too young to like really get formally involved in like ownership and leadership decisions, what are some of like the effective ways that you've found to help them feel connected to the family enterprise? Because you have like this really cool history with Pilot J and all that. How do you kind of get them to care, and to be interested?
What do you mean? They all care so deeply.
Of course, yeah.
No, I'm
Care
kidding. They
more.
actually are. Again, like I feel really lucky. I'm sure I know people say this, but I'm like, I really do just like love our family. And specifically, I'm like our G4, because they are just so much fun. People are like, well, what's been like the most helpful experience in this role? And will say without a doubt, it has been my experience as a camp counselor helping G4, because it is, to your point, they don't have, the understanding given their age. Again, our G4, it's a pretty wide age range. So we have, 17 to 1.
Right.
So meeting them where they are in terms of A, what their parents are comfortable with them knowing, and then B, just they all learn different ways. And so I think, as far as the history piece goes, a couple of years ago at one of the family meetings, we always put together these gift bags that we would give the family, just kind of in advance to be like, even if you're not jazzed to be here, here's
a present.
Yeah.
Right.
So in that one year we had, so Mr. Haslam, again, founded Pilot, is the most wonderful man. He's, again, cannot say enough great things about him. And luckily, he still comes in the office every day. So he's just right across the hall. So worked with him to create a card game, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's almost like trivia, like Haslam family trivia.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of the goal, the audience was G4, but I think some of the rest of the family realized too, they were like, oh gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't know the different pieces of the business story that, again, Mr. Haslam spoke into, because I think we always want to be really sensitive. It's not our family. It wasn't our experience. We're just here to help preserve it and help, highlight certain pieces that the family doesn't want to lose. And so the card game was really fun. We do a newsletter. And so part of the newsletter is we'll kind of pick a different piece of the, history to kind of highlight in a different way. And then from just on the history piece of things, that has been a project we have been working on, that I think honestly, it'll be like years, until it's probably fully finished. And hopefully it's never fully finished, because we want it to be reflective of both like past, present, and future. But, that kind of evolved from like, how do we tell the story in a way that the rising gen can appreciate what they're coming into, and all that. I'm like, I wish I had that for my own family. Like, I wish somebody like, hey, watch this video clip, and this is kind of in a nutshell all that you need to know. And so that's kind of what we're trying to create for the family. So it's really, it's by the family, for the family. It's not for the public in any way. So, we're really trying to just honor all that Mr. Haslam built, all that the rest of the family has built and is currently building. And the different ways that other family members were involved in the history of Pilot and making it what it was. And so we have worked with a few different organizations to try to capture that, with the goal of creating a film. Because again, the rising generation now is so, they want everything, and they want to be able to watch it in like 2 to 5 minutes. And so
totally.
Where, our older generations, they older or are just are wiser generations than
Yeah, more senior, yeah.
more senior. Yes, they, really love having things on paper and don't mind reading
Yeah.
through it. So we're trying to, that's part of our job as the family office is to communicate in the ways that they want to be communicated with. So for some,
Yeah,
that's, you know, slide decks and some that's videos. So
definitely. Yeah. And then so as the family gets as the G4s or whatever generation it would be that you're
right.
looking at, as they get older, start to understand this stuff maybe a little bit more, get more interested in like the ownership and the investment side and everything else. Is it part of your job to then start facilitating that education? So like you've kind of early on, you've taught them about the family and the history of the family and what they own or what they do for the community. As it gets older, now you have to come up with more of like almost a curriculum for the more sophisticated stuff, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so we do have, for our education, again, that's been an ongoing process too.
Yeah.
And some, families are more ready to engage and jump in than others, which again is totally fine.
Yeah.
And so the best way to think about it is almost, or at least what helps me is to think about it kind of like a roadmap.
Yeah.
And so at some point, it's just all you want to do and all that I think their parents want. And I think, what we hope for them from the family office side is just to help give them all the resources that they need and will need, both now and when they get older to help be like thoughtful stewards of
Yeah.
they're going to come into. And it's the best way that I've thought about the education piece is like, it's like learning a language. The earlier that you do it and the earlier that you just kind of start familiarizing them with whether it's terms, different, like, hey, the investment piece of things, philanthropy, like realizing your money does actually follow your values. And that's not a bad thing, but it's also something just to be aware of.
Yeah.
It's okay that your values are totally different than your siblings
Yeah.
or your cousins. Like, that's not a bad thing. Um,
Yeah.
and it's also something to be aware of. And like, we're here from the family office side and to create, what we're doing and trying to, instill in them from the education piece is just how do you think about those things? Just helpful
Yeah.
tools, just different tools in your tool belt. And so again, luckily our team here at HF Capital is incredible and we've gotten to work with some great outside advisors that have been really helpful in that too. So it's definitely it takes a village. But
Yeah.
the biggest piece of I think what we do is we just want them to feel comfortable coming to us as, feeling comfortable just building the relational equity with the family office. And that's for G4, but also for the rest of the family too. And so, yeah, just the more that they can come spend time with us, the more that they can come and spend time at the family office. It's less of a scary business place and more of,
Yeah.
oh, I can call, like we have, when they get older, when our G4s get older and can actually start coming to the main family meetings, something that we've incorporated is like just mentors for them so that if they're sitting in a meeting and feel embarrassed that they're like, gosh, I have no idea what's being talked about right now. I don't know how to make sense of anything that's being said. They can
Yeah.
lean over to, their HF Capital mentor and just be like, what are they
Yeah.
talking about?
What is that? Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Just to have a resource and just somebody who, they've built a relationship with over time. And so
Yeah.
it's not a perfect system, but I think a lot of it is just based on the relational piece of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So one more question on sort of the education piece, because I'll shout out Peter Bagala. He's our conference chair here, but he's also an advisor and probably one of the few people who, like we were talking about before, who I would say is a family office expert, right?
Yes, we need them.
Yes, yes. And when I started here, it's always talking about next gen education and next gen engagement. And he was like,
It's such a hot
it's not
topic.
totally right. Yeah. And it comes up a lot. But he stopped me the one day and he was like, it's not just next gens that need work on engagement and need work on education. He's like, sometimes the next gens are more engaged or better educated than some of the current gens. And so my question is just like, what does that process look like for the folks who are in the current gen or whatever, the more senior generations, like I said,
For sure.
how do you work on engagement and education with them? Because, this family office is still relatively new.
Mhm.
They have to kind of also learn how the family office serves them and what they can get out of it, right?
For sure. Think and this really I say probably clicked for us within the last couple of years that for it's easier to think about, for G4 because they're younger, it's like, oh, well, they don't know this already. But I think exactly to your point, I'm like, well, their parents also, there was never a point in time where they didn't have a family office when they were
Right.
their age. And
Yeah.
so I think it's been in a roundabout way. I think the way that it has kind of worked is I think we've gotten actually more engagement for the more senior generations through G4. So kind of the more that we engage them, I think the more that their parents and grandparents are like, oh, that's kind of maybe interesting or
Yeah.
something like that. And also
Yeah.
I think, it's never I will be the first to fall on the sword because I do not have a finance investment background. And so even for our investment team, I'm like, make it make sense to me. Like if
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
understand it, then you're good to go. Um, but I think, and same, the other generations, most of them don't have finance or investment backgrounds either. And so creating it, it's our job on the family office side to create and present the information in a way that's really digestible and
Yeah.
approachable. Because if you look at if you're given a stack, for a stack like a meeting deck, and it's 100 pages long, and you don't know what any of it says. Again, it's like you're reading a different language, and so
Definitely.
you might be given all of the information, but if you don't know how to interpret the information, then we haven't done our job either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think from what we've done with the family offices, it's funny if you look back, the first family meeting that we did with them over time, we've started with the binders that we would give them at the meeting were like this thick.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, they're so thin.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
really is just, okay, how do we meet you where you are and recognize that that might be different than where your dad might be here and you might be in a totally different place. And so creating an event as we think about family meetings, really creating opportunities there that's like, hey, investment 101, like we've got you. There's a space
Yeah.
to ask those questions that'll be a smaller group. And so, and also still meeting, again, that's the tricky part of any family meeting is you're trying to meet a lot of different knowledge points
Levels of understanding. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And And so I think just as long as we're giving them opportunities to feel engaged, to feel like they can ask what they might feel like is a dumb question. But what they don't realize is probably half the other people in the room also have that same question.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would say the best way that we've kind of come to do it is realizing like, oh, okay, we can start with G4 and we don't want to neglect the more senior generations in that either.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. And it's really such a strength that you can be sort of the filter for like the really complicated investment stuff that they need to kind of make it make sense to you before they go to the fountain. Because that stuff can become so jargon heavy and acronyms and all this stuff, and it just becomes so difficult to understand. So it's actually really great that they need to kind of like cut through that, because if everybody in the family office knows what all that stuff means, it's very hard. I used to work with lawyers all the time.
right,
They know what they're talking about, but
right,
nobody else does, right? So to
right.
be able to
And
translate is important.
yes, I was like, if it can pass this, if I understand, well, at the end of meetings, sometimes I'm like, that was a really great presentation. And I know that because I understood every single thing that you were saying.
Well, there you go. Absolutely.
So I do. I'm like, if it helps, because like, nobody wants to be like, I don't understand.
Right.
So I'm always happy to be the one that's like, break it down. Like, you think you've broken it down, but I need you to
Yeah.
go
A little bit
like
more.
a little bit, even a little bit more. So
Right, right. All right. So my last question, and I'm cheating a little bit because it's a two-parter, but just I always like to ask this, especially in a family office role. What would you say is the most challenging part of your role, and then what would you say is the most rewarding part?
mm, I mean, definitely trying to meet different, like, we have 43 people. So,
Yeah.
again, we have a 1-year-old in there, so their voice isn't quite being vocalized yet.
Right.
But, you so deeply want, like, all that I want out of a family meeting is for them to have left and feel like they had a great time and can't wait until the next one. And also that they feel, more connected as a family. Just, a tricky thing to do when you're not actually part of the family. So I think just trying to navigate a lot of different preferences and expectations and realize that, you know, some people have been counting down the days until that meeting comes, and because they're so excited, and some people
Yeah.
have been counting down the days because they're not as excited about it. And they're just
Right.
realizing, like, everybody's coming in with a very different, level appetite for that particular meeting.
Yeah.
Um, and just the reality that, you know, everybody has different values, everybody has a different life experience. And so that's definitely the hardest part, is trying to create something where everybody in some way has something that they can look forward to.
Right. And get some value out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if that's a 30-minute session that only speaks to one person in the family. But for me, that is so worth it, because that might be the only thing that they enjoy the whole time. Um, and so that's definitely the most challenging part. Um, but then also, the flip side is, I would say, I guess almost the other answer is, that is also what makes it so amazing.
Yeah.
You get to work for, it is technical work, but we get to do it for a family. So that's definitely the thing that is the most rewarding.
Yeah.
Have loved them for a long time. And so, especially for the G4, like, as we think about those kids, I've known some of them for a long time now. And so
Yeah.
it's so rewarding to watch them grow up. And, it feels like a great privilege, but also a great responsibility to think about, what the things that we're doing now can either set them up for success, or potentially, are we equipping them with the tools that they need to be successful and thoughtful. And um yeah, so it's so exciting. I would say that's definitely the most rewarding, is to think about the kids, and just just imagining all that they are doing right now, and just kind of seeing them light up at different things. And yeah, it's fun to think about just them down the road. So, and how,
Yeah.
even in a small way, if we can, I think the way that we can think about it is, are we helping or are we hurting?
Yeah.
And so, as long as we're just helping them, even in a small way, that's worth it. So,
Yeah. Definitely.